This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook, and I have Jon Weinbach, and he and I are already soulmates. We would be here talking all day, but we only got a few minutes to get into his playbook to success. He is the executive producer and executive VP of Mandalay Sports Media, and one of the producers of the unbelievable and maybe only one of the best content that's available today, The Last Dance. Thank God for Jon Weinbach and his crew, because without it, there would actually be no sports content. Welcome to the Playbook.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I was so excited when I first heard about The Last Dance, and then obviously we had this nice pause, and it was like a necessity for me. It was like literally waiting for the Super Bowl every single time I got to watch it, because you're starving for something good, and it's really good. And so I'd love to kind of start on the playbook to success of, how does a Beverly Hills High kid that goes to Yale end up, in this position to probably create one of the most renowned documentaries of all time?
Well, I'll take that intro. Well, the long short story, I guess, is I got to Mandalay Sports Media through my partner and my boss, Mike Tolan, who I got to know through the ESPN 30 for 30 series. So I, the way back stories, I was a reporter with the Wall Street Journal. I covered sports and business, did a show for ESPN shortly thereafter called The Life, like sort of documentary style profiles of athletes, went back to the Journal working in LA. And the executive producer of the ESPN show that we had done in 2001 is a guy named Jamie Patrikoff, who's a very decorated producer on his own right. We, sort of came up through the ranks. We did the show together, and he said, they're doing this. Remember, we've heard about this 30 for 30 series. Well, our friend Connor Shell, who was on our staff on The Life, stayed at ESPN and rose through the ranks. He's now, the president of content. He's a great guy. He was sort of leading the charge to this documentary series, and was like, hey, we think we can get Ice Cube to direct one. What should we do? Jamie asked me. I said, well, if we got Cube, let's do something about the Raiders and NWA. I mean, I grew up in LA. I'm a hip hop fan, Raider fan. And there was this nexus between, as pro sports and hip hop that was really fused, you could say by Run DMC, but really by NWA wearing the Raiders colors and creating this sort of indelible image that fused hip hop, and specifically sort of West Coast hip hop with a pro team, and the gear and all that came around with it. Anyway, I got to know Mike Tolan. He was the out of ESPN producer that they had charged with, like, you're Mike Tolan, you're the guy who created Arliss and One Tree Hill and Smallville, and you're a massive sports fan and an Academy Award nominated documentary filmmaker. We did it on Hank Aaron. Help us build this brand. So I got to know Mike through that, and it was sort of like, geez, wouldn't it be great to work with this guy? And so we kept in touch over the years, and I produced a film called The Other Dream Team that got into the Sundance Film Festival in 2012. And Mike had been telling me, I may be starting this thing with Peter Guber. And so I said, look, Mike, if you actually start that, I'm raising my hand now. So the film came out at Sundance. Mike called me, and we launched this company in 2012, Mandalay Sports Media, with Peter Guber as our executive chairman, doing sports content across all platforms. Okay, so that's the short story. That's not even the long story with the Jordan Project. So I had heard about this mythical footage that existed, shot about Michael Jordan's final season. Anybody who kind of worked in sports media or dealt with the NBA had heard whispers probably at some point. And it came to our attention again, sort of winter break, Christmas break, 2015, 2016. And we thought, all right, well, maybe now it's time. And, there had been various producers, Frank Marshall, Spike Lee, Danny DeVito, a lot of people had taken a run at this. And, I give it to Mike. He had the gumption really to think that, hey, why not us? Why not him? He had a great track record. Why not our company? We've done, I think, good work. And obviously Peter is a NBA governor. So we went to Toronto first to meet with Esty Portnoy and Curtis Polk, who are, Michael's longtime partners and gatekeepers and, advisors. That went well. Mike had a good meeting there. And then we sort of set about creating this big lookbook, a deck, a super deck on the project that mapped out, I think we did one version at 6, one version at 8, one up at 10. Mike got a call. Michael will meet with you in June of 2016. The stars aligned. Michael said yes. And so I wish I could tell you, oh yeah, we started production the next week. No, we started about a year and a half later.
Which is still fast.
Yeah, and brought a great director, Jason Hare, who I had tried to hire 3 years earlier for a different project. He's done the Fab Five doc and had done several 30 for 30s. Had done the Andre the Giant HBO doc, and he assembled a great team. And so then so we went forward for 2 years, and the plan was to have it come out in June, and things changed, and it was really an internal conversation that we started happening as soon as the world stopped. Is like, hey, we should probably try to get this out. And there was this clamoring from social media, and sort of those two impulses mixed.
Right.
And so, by hook and by crook, and with just an insane amount of effort, we were able to get these shows done.
It's so interesting because, as an entrepreneurial side of things, and somebody who people look at, say, I've been blessed to do stuff with Angelo Pizzo and David Anspaugh, the third Indiana Gem, the 500, which got killed in 2008, never came out, but will, right? And then now doing another movie with Pizzo, and I'm a lawyer, right? I'm literally no talent, media, entertainment. I'm a marketing and salesperson. But the two things that resonated with me is, one, I'm like you, right? I hear of cool projects, and I kind of lay a seed going, hey, if you're going to, and Leigh taught me this, Leigh Steinberg, because he worked on our list with Tolan, right? He was the technical advisor to our list and kind of giving him the stories from being a sports agent all those years. But just raising your hand and letting someone know, hey, if you're going to do that, I'm interested. And then the other thing you did that was very sports agent-like is spheres of influence. Like a lot of people that you mentioned that were making a run at it probably made a run right at Michael, and they don't know how projects are made or done, right? And you use the spheres of influence to get alignment so that you have the internal power sponsorship, as you call them. I call them sponsors, right? You call them gatekeepers.
Yeah, no, very much so. I mean, I wish we could say we were that smart. I mean, I think that is part of it. I mean, look, I look at sort of, maybe because I was a reporter first, and I always sort of come to the world through that prism of like, hey, what's the story? Every project's a story. I'm a story. People like to use highfalutin terms. I'm a storyteller. Whatever you are, a writer, producer, director, you got to tell a story and convince people that it's worth telling. And so I still kind of look at the world through that lens of like, okay, when I was a reporter, I often had to convince. I had mostly female editors. I was at a paper known for its business coverage. This was not a place that was easy to sell stories about sports business or travel or entertainment if they weren't really news-shaking business stories. And so I had to convince them. We had a whole proposal process on every story. And so we still do that now. Every project, we got to do a treatment. We got to do a deck. We got to do a sizzle reel. So a lot of that is crafting the story. And I think with the Jordan project, it's the combination of timing, opportunity, and the right kismet, you know what I mean? And so I think the fact that Mike's profile helped, I think the fact that Peter was on, part of our team, I think our company's track record, we've done 30 for 30s, we've done Sundance docs, we've done Academy nominated docs, all that kind of stuff helped, that we were not a, fly-by-night organization. Sure. And also the timing factor, I think part of the problem previously was that it was either too close to Michael's retirement from the Bulls, too close to the retirement from the Wizards. And then in the early years, let's call it in the last, early years of 2011, 2010, 11, 12, he was still, getting acclimated as an owner. And so the fact that we were coming to him at the same year that the Wizards were about to break that the Warriors were about to break the Bulls all-time record helped. And I think it was like originally we were going to come out in 2018. It was like, oh, it's 20 years. That just is a round number that made sense to people. But I wish I could tell you, hey, we had a thought out plan and Michael's going to say yes. I think we shot, hey, let's take our shot. It feels like it's time. There's like almost a full generation that's passed seen him play. Let's go for it.
That was awesome. And then my curiosity too, in the business of media and content is that, people can't film right now. And if they do, it's a new form with Zoom or whatever aspects. And there's going to be some creative content coming out, as you know. But I would think that people like you and your group have some really good projects in the can that maybe didn't sell or wasn't launched. And that, now you have the hottest thing available, are more people coming to you for, you know, that content, that repository?
Well, you know, the challenge, the answer is yes. We've certainly had a lot of incoming people. Hey, you know, would you be interested in doing X, Y, or Z? We're currently editing. We have a multi-part series coming out for Showtime on the history of the Comedy Store, so a non-sports project. And that actually grew out of a project.
Is that Pauly Shore? Is that the Shore?
Yeah,
family?
the Shore family.
Yeah.
And so
That's going to be great.
yeah, no, and that actually grew out of the original impulse. I mean, I've sort of, again, as an LA native and a Los Angeles file, you know what I mean? I love our city and its history and its institutions. And so I've driven by the Comedy Store my whole life. And I did a story for the LA Times years and years ago about the Comedy Store. Actually, when it was sort of, you know, what people may not realize is it's gone through waves. And that's what sort of makes the series really interesting. I mean, it was this completely revolutionary rock and roll place in the 70s and the 80s. And then it had a kind of a real fallow period in the late 90s and early 2000s. And now it's like the golden era of like Letterman and Leno. I mean, any night, obviously pre-coronavirus, you're talking about like a lineup 7 deep, 8 deep of people with Netflix specials. I mean, it's crazy. And so it really is a vibrant and vital place. And so that's what we're exploring in the series. And the director is a guy named Mike Binder, who, you know, has had a decorated career as a writer and director, but started as a stand-up comic at the Comedy Store in the 70s. So that's really cool. And so we've got a couple other things hopping, but you know, the reality is, especially difference scripted and unscripted. Scripted, we've got projects that obviously haven't been shot. And then unscripted, most of the stuff that we were shooting, we're editing now. And so the next challenge is, okay, what can we do in a responsible way with the timeline we have? It's a lot of unknowns.
Where do you think the gap's going to be? So I'm trying to figure out, with content, you know, not available as far as shooting in the most part, you know, where's the gap going to come in the media business, do you think?
To fill that need for something new. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, if I knew, I would, you know, probably be Bob Iger. But like,
tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's a human problem. It's not like just an entertainment problem. It's not just like where's the gap in education going to come? Where's the gap in entertainment going to come? And so, I don't know. I mean, I think, look, I don't know if you've experienced this. The Zoom calling thing, I do think that these kinds of discussions, you know, it's like we've seen with TED Talks on YouTube. I think this kind of discussions, certainly people can consume it, not in the same way, but I find that, like, you know, it's sort of a more enjoyable way to speak to someone rather than on the phone. I mean, I think if we have to do this permanently or semi-permanently, it'll get less fun, but for the time being, I think people just like seeing another human, you know? And so that part of it, I feel like you get a little more honest conversation and people are a little more, you know, human.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, the whole distraction and multitasking, because I find myself, because I am definitely a perpetrator of this, you know, I'm the king of putting you on speakerphone and doing 6 things. And
right.
I can't do it, right? And I can't do it now. And I do, because I am so thirsty for this type of interaction, because I'm blessed to meet totally interesting people like yourself in person all the time. It's just like, I forgot we were going to do this when we were talking, because I was like so back into my being of like, oh, dude, Jon's so cool. This, like, we're talking about our histories and Karis and all this stuff. I'm like, this is what Zoom is so powerful for, is I feel like, okay, cool, I made a new friend. And
well, that's right.
Right.
That's right. I mean, it's just, you know, I mean, like we're in California now, like this weekend, how nice was it outside? And it's just like, you know, on the one hand, is it terrible to say, like, I can take my kids bike riding anywhere? And and it's nice, but like, I kind of don't want this, but I kind of like this, you know?
Right.
It's really, look, I'm very blessed, you know, aside from obviously the success of the show, everyone's healthy. Like I have a job, my wife has a job. So that's the most important thing. But, you know, for us, it's been, you know, this incredible, very surreal ride to have, like, you know, you'd hope over the past 5 weeks, you hope in your career, you have one project that has 1/3 or 1/10 of the zeitgeistiness of the Jordan Project. And the thing that's all, you know, we talk about this all the time at the office. Like, you know, you have a lot of projects that are kind of unfairly ignored. You work your heart out, to do them. And you might feel really good about it, but they get ignored or unfairly criticized. This one's being justifiably praised. I feel, I mean, I'm very proud of it. The team did an incredible job. But like the fact when you have people thanking you for a show from all over the world because it's on Netflix outside of the United States. And so, family friends in Argentina or Chile or Israel, Canada, it's just like, holy shit, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's awesome. I did a show, Elevator Pitch, which was digital. And then all of a sudden people are so thirsty, right? I see it at 8:30 every time on all these different places. I'm like, that's just complete luck, right? It's a decent project. It's no The Last Dance. But I think if everything was normal, it'd still just be the entrepreneur, digital project that now is like getting some play because they're so thirsty. I just want to talk about one more thing because so many people on the professional side, they don't connect the dots backwards, right? There's a certain attitude with an aptitude that allows you to have different options and puts you in a position to be successful regardless of what happens externally. There's certain people, and Jon, you're one of them, that I could tell you, I don't know what he's going to be. I could say he's going to be executive producer or working for a media company, but, when you go to school and you're a good student, obviously going to Yale, what was your vision of yourself? What were you going to be doing in your mid 40s?
Appearing on David Meltzer's podcast.
Nice. Genius.
No, I mean, listen, I knew I wanted to, what was my dream? I wanted to own the Lakers or, be a professional baseball
player. We can partner. We still can do it, buddy.
Exactly.
This Last Dance has been real successful. We got to get this going.
I mean, honestly, I was really, I'm obsessed. I'm a 1%er of sports geekery, probably hardest core basketball, baseball, soccer, somewhere in that area. I played a lot of soccer and a lot of baseball. I played a lot of them, but in high school, I had to make a choice between soccer and basketball in California. So I chose soccer, but no, I think I knew I wanted to be in the media or entertainment business. I watched tons of movies. I read a lot of, I really was obsessed with Sports Illustrated. I always wanted to be a writer for Sports Illustrated. I thought that would be like the greatest thing ever. And
these new kids have no idea what we're talking about when you say that. You're like a writer for what's Sports Illustrated?
Yeah, I know. And I just always, I read the newspaper at an early age, I think because my dad did. And like, I used to read, he's like, oh, you should read the sports pages. Like you might find that interesting. And, LA, we had these incredible writers and Jim Murray and Mike Dowdy in the sports pages. And I've said this before, I think growing up in the 80s in LA was the greatest time ever to be a kid as a sports fan.
Oh yeah. Kings, Lakers, Dodgers,
the Olympics, the Raiders, the Rams.
I went to Occidental because they let me play football. And I would say it's the one school that would let me play. But Sam Farmer and I went to school.
Oh, okay.
So, he dreamed about it. He's like, this is it. I'm going to work for the LA Times.
Yeah, it's funny. I knew I didn't want to be a beat reporter because that would be that was like a grind. I think I wanted to do, writing. And I thought either whether it's magazines or maybe screenwriting or maybe directing. And then, when I was at the newspaper, it's funny, I remember speaking to Leigh Steinberg in either 98 or 99 after the Rams and Raiders moved, and he was in part of this effort to bring back the Rams.
Yeah, he's the president of Save the Rams.
Save the Rams. And I remember I was, really into the sports business as a business. And I remember thinking like, I don't know if I want to write about this as a reporter. I think I should be doing this. And so I had some issues like, should I go to law school or should I go to business school and go on to that side? And have a lot of people, my exact cohort are the new leaders of sports business, whether, Theo Epstein was my college sports editor, and all the, like Andrew Friedman, who runs the Dodgers, is I think a year or two younger than me, very similar background. And, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I could have been running a team by now. But I think I knew I wanted to be in the sports industry, and I gravitated to the storytelling part of it because I love that. I would gladly be a general manager of a Major League Soccer team or a baseball team. You can, and so maybe, but I knew I wanted to be in the sports business, and I think that the stars align, meet the right people. But I think at the core of it, it's like I wanted to write, and then it became producing, and then it became sort of directing, producing, doing interviews. I love just being able to talk to people. So that's kind of what I saw myself doing. Exactly what that meant, I don't know, but I knew I wanted to be in the sports media industry.
I'll give you a little insight. Being friends with Tannenbaum and Morad and those guys, they always told me it's much better to be friends with the general manager than to be the general manager.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. People thought, oh, why don't you want to be a sports agent? That was also something that was a part I knew I didn't want to do.
Oh, you're smart.
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to do. I don't know. I just never. That was not something that ever appealed to me. but I'm friendly with a lot of sports agents. But that to me seemed like I don't want to represent someone else. I want to represent me. And so that was. It's almost, I actually, you said about these things, it's more important almost to know what you don't want to do. Because if you know what you generally want to do, you can figure it out. But if you know, okay, I don't want to do that helps, because it's like, okay, then you know what you don't want to do. And that you also need time to figure that out.
Yeah, that's great advice. Last thing about advice, I'll let you go, Jon. I really appreciate it. You have 2 young boys. I have a son, 10. Your boys are right around my boy's age. And I'd love to know, what's the best piece of advice that you're giving your kids about this experience, right? I believe in experiential values, and I'm trying to give my son good advice about this specific experience with learning at home and, the pandemic and fear and uncertainty. There's a whole bunch of things that I'm trying to process. And I love people that are in your industry because you really have identified human nature and you've studied it and you're a storyteller. So what advice are you giving the boys?
Besides not playing Fortnite all the time.
Me too.
Yeah. I think and it's gratitude's one of these things that people throw around, but I do think, look, I can only speak from my experience. We've been extraordinarily lucky during this time. We've had this incredible project that I'm beyond grateful to be a part of. And it's given us something really positive every Sunday. And obviously it's been stressful and it's still not done. And it's 4+ years and this and that and the other thing. And, it's not been a joyride the entire time, but the whole time I will tell you is and this is what I try to say to the kids is just be grateful. We got this, we nobody's God, thank God. My parents are healthy. My wife's parents are healthy. You gotta try to remember that. And I know it's annoying. My kids want to play Little League baseball, and my older son was going to play in a club's baseball tournament in Cooperstown. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. And so we play catch as much as we can. We go bike riding. We try to make it at least let's do things we wouldn't ordinarily do, because it's just crazy. Because if you sit in it, it's just too crazy.
Yeah, that's
good. And then scary.
Yeah, find the light, love, and lessons in everything.
Yes.
Right there together. And I just want to tell you how honored I am, grateful to become your friend online and hopefully someday in person. But congratulations, most of all. Job well done. You deserve it. Have fun with the boys. Maybe learn Fortnite as well. Now, keep playing.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Jon Weinbach.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Playbook.